Amongst all the teams on the grid, Mercedes is the only team to have driver pairing that are both British nationals. So it is expected that the team will bring everything they've got performance and upgrades-wise into their home race, where they have won 8 of the last 10 races there. So what does this mean really? Should Mercedes fans have high hopes this weekend? And is the new FIA interim head in secret partnership with Mercedes? Well, you're going to have to stick around to find out. And as always, consider subscribing to the channel as we upload 4 times a week to keep you updated on the latest happening in the F1 space. Now let's get to it. Before we give you the details on what Mercedes plans on bringing this weekend, we must give context as to why many experts and fans believe that Silverstone will be Mercedes' best shot at winning a race this season. 4 races ago in Spain, Mercedes probably had its best outing in terms of car performance. A car that before the race in Barcelona would be seen aggressively bouncing up and down straights and losing out lap time to teams like Ferrari and most especially Red Bull. But at times during the race in Barcelona, Mercedes and their 7-time world champion driver would set blistering lap times, beating out even race leader Max Verstappen at times. This outing would give fans a glimmer of hope that the out-of-the-box design by Mercedes has some speed into it. But the optimism would die down during the next races, where the W13 would show a new set of problems brought out by the rough surfaces on the street circuits the teams would have to compete in for the next 2 races after Barcelona. Insert Lewis being the poster boy of porpoising after Baku, but the team would again have their theory of the W13 being more competitive in more conventional race circuits such as Canada, as the team would again set blistering lap times from time to time during the race. And now as the calendar heads to Silverstone, a quick circuit with a more forgiving surface compared to say Monaco or Baku, the team is optimistic about their performance heading into this weekend. George Russell would even tell the media, "I'd like to think the high-speed nature should suit us slightly more, but there's no guarantees," said Russell of Silverstone. "Every single track we have gone to has thrown an unknown at us. We are facing different issues every single race weekend. So I'd like to think we'll be more competitive, but I don't know." Toto Wolff has said publicly that he believes that the team has finally fixed its porpoising problems, and that it is bouncing that is causing their drivers the bumpy ride. Many experts believe that it is because Mercedes has always run a lower rate car in previous years, which possibly led them to develop a stiff, limited travel rear suspension to keep the car within that limited range of rake angle. High rate cars need softer and longer travel rear suspension, which these new era of cars aren't at all. These cars are even lower than what Mercedes are used to running their car in order to maximize the effectiveness of the underbody Venturi tunnels. But for that to work, they need more suspension travel, something that Mercedes isn't giving their W13. But Mercedes has told its fans that they are continuing to attack this problem as they believe this will unlock the W13's pace. Mercedes technical director Mike Elliott would say in their Canadian Grand Prix race debrief, "We will be bringing new bits to Silverstone. We will be trying to push the car forward, trying to get some pace from the car we've got, as well as the new bits we are going to add to it." I think at the same time though, we have to be honest with ourselves and say that at the moment we are just a little bit behind those front runners in Ferrari and Red Bull, and in a normal race, I think it is going to be tough. I think Silverstone will be a circuit that suits us a little bit better, like Barcelona did, but maybe it will just be a little bit difficult. Whatever happens, we will push as hard as we can. But whether or not the new upgrades will have a positive effect or another letdown is too hard to predict. What is a bit more predictable is that Silverstone will be the first race in which the FIA will attempt to place a limit on the severity of the porpoising forces after gathering data in Montreal. The FIA has announced that rather than prescribing a ride height, the FIA will instead insist teams run a setup that the force of the bouncing will be within the prescribed limits. This directive could either work to or against Mercedes' favour, depending on the new upgrades they plan on bringing to the car. And since we've mentioned it, Ferrari's team principal, Mattia Binotto, and former chief executive of Formula One Group, Bernie Ecclestone, believe that having a former Mercedes employee as the new interim head of Formula One at the FIA dangerous, saying, "It's bloody dangerous. Toto started all this nonsense about the cars needing to change. She told them about the new directive, obviously. She worked with Toto for 2 or 3 years. I wanted to get Luca di Montezemolo as chairman of the company when I was running things, but the teams went mad because he was Ferrari's man. It was seen as a conflict of interest, so how can she do this job? While Mattia would say, she is a great person, she's got a lot of experience, she will certainly be capable of doing the job. It's down to them to make sure that there will be no conflicts of interest at all, to behave properly, and it's down to the president to ensure it. And Mercedes' week of controversy does not end there, as former F1 driver and three-time champion Nelson Piquet has been condemned by the FIA, every team on the grid and the fans after using a derogatory term to call Lewis in an interview. Piquet was asked about his thoughts on last year's Silverstone race where Red Bull driver Max Verstappen shunted onto the barriers after battling Lewis Hamilton in the infamous Cop's Corner. While sharing his opinions on the event, Piquet would use the Portuguese equivalent of the N-word, which sparked the internet into a frenzy. The FIA and almost all the teams, including Mercedes, would have officially released their statements in support of Lewis and basically condemning Piquet's words. The FIA would say, "Discriminatory language is unacceptable in any form and has no part in society. Lewis is an incredible ambassador for our sport and deserves respect. His tireless efforts to increase diversity and inclusion are a lesson to many and something we are committed to at F1. While Mercedes would say, Lewis has spearheaded our sport's effort to combat racism, and he is a true champion of diversity on and off track together. We share a vision for a diverse and inclusive motorsport, and this incident underlines the fundamental importance of continuing to strive for a brighter future. Since the news caught fire, Piquet has decided to post on his personal Instagram account, which would furthermore infuriate every F1 fan in the world. And as for Lewis, he would call for action against such actions, saying on his Twitter account, "It's more than language. These archaic mindsets need to change and have no place in our sport. I've been surrounded by these attitudes and targeted my whole life. There has been plenty of time to learn. Time has come for action." Lewis would also relive the palpable tension in the F1 space by following his serious tweet with this, referring to the time he was asked by a reporter who Franz Tost was after the AlphaTauri team boss had some fighting words against the seven-time world champion. His teammate George Russell would also come to the support of him, saying in a tweet, "Huge respect to LH. He has done more for our sport than any driver in history. Not just on track, but off it. The fact that he and so many others are still having to deal with this behavior is unacceptable. We all need to stand together against discrimination of any kind." Definitely an eventful week for Mercedes, and heading into Silverstone, the team will definitely channel all this negative energy around them to get another win in their home race. But what do you think? What are the chances Mercedes make a return to the top step of the podium this weekend? And how would you have personally have handled the situation if you were in Hamilton's position? Let us know in the comments section below, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't.